All right, so number 5, it says in the equation above, k is a constant and x is equal to -9, x is equal to 9. What is the value of k? So basically, you're just going to be plugging in 9 for x for this problem and solving for k. So this isn't too bad, but I'm just going to go over the steps anyway, just in case. So the only one that we know is 9, so I'm just going to plug in 9 over here. You can move the 9 over to the other side, of course. You're left with this. Now, in order to eliminate the k and isolate it, you have to square root both sides. So you take this, you have to square both sides. So you have to square this one over here. And the reason why we square the radical k plus 2 is because it's going to eliminate the radical there. Because as you guys know, a radical squared just eliminates the radical. So, of course, but what we do to one side has to be done to the other side. So this ends up being 81. And this ends up just being k plus 2. So you just move the 2 over to the other side, you subtract, and then you get k is equal to 79. And that's your answer. And then let's look at number 7. It says Jackie has 2 summer jobs. This is a system of equations, kind of. System of inequalities, to be more specific. And the reason why I'm doing this is just so you guys know how to set it up. I don't think you have to solve anything for this, but just so we can get a review of setting things up. So it says Jackie has 2 summer jobs. She works as a tutor, which pays $12 an hour, and she works as a lifeguard, which pays $9.50 an hour. She can work no more than 20 hours per week, but she wants to earn at least $220 per week. So which of the following systems of inequalities represents the situation? I'm not gonna read the variables. So you just need to know that at least looking at the variables, actually now looking at them, x is the number of hours, y is the number of hours. So x and y are hours. It says that she doesn't want to work, she wants to work no more than 20 hours per week. So that means that her total sum of hours has to be less than or equal to 20. So just from that first statement, I only see that 2 answers match up with that. So it's not D, it's not A. Because what A and D are saying is that she wants to work 20 hours or more during the whole week. That's not true. So now we have to line it up for what she's saying about the money. She wants to earn at least $220 per week, which means that when she gets paid, which can be represented by this, it needs to be greater than or equal to 220 because she wants to make more than 220. So C is the only answer because this is just, it doesn't work. It's the wrong sign. So this is just really interpreting the problem, at least for this problem. So it wasn't too bad. And all these problems, at least within the first few pages, are not impossible to solve. It gets much harder when you move on. Let's look at number 8. I want to do number 9 and number 10. Number 8 is just interpretation of slope. Actually, no, it's interpretation of the y-intercept, which we've done before, and it's not too bad. So I'll do number 9 and 10 just because I know when we're kind of not as strong in algebra or we kind of forgot algebra, the plugging in can get a little confusing since we don't know what to always do. So let's see. If xy is a solution to the system of equations above and x is greater than 0, what is the value of xy? Well, there are many ways to solve a system of equations. There's substitution, there's elimination, but in this problem, I think I'm going to go with substitution. I'm going to do it at the bottom of number 8, just because it very simply tells us that y is equal to x squared. So what you can do is plug that in for the y over here. So you can just plug it in over here because the y is right there under 2y. So then you just write the rest as you normally would. You can simplify this to 2x squared. You have a 6 over here. This becomes 2x plus 6. You move everything over to the other side because once you have a variable with an exponent, it's good to just set everything equal to 0 and see if you can factor it out. So this ends up being 2x squared minus 2x. And then this ends up being 0 because minus 6, they cancel out. So this can be factored very easily. All you have to do is bring the 2x to the front and you have x minus 1. So those are your 2 solutions. So really x can be equal to 0 and x can be equal to 1. And that's because when you isolate these terms individually, you have 2x is equal to 0. You get x is equal to 0, and then x is equal to 1, of course. You just move it over and you get that. So that's where those solutions come from. But wait, it does tell us that x has to be above 0, has to be greater than 0. So we can kind of eliminate this solution, and this will be our x. So then now we need to find the y, because it's not just asking us for the x, it's asking us for the value of x times y. So I'm going to go ahead and plug in the x that we just got into the more simple equation right over here. And when you do that, you end up getting that y is equal to 1. And when you do x times y, 1 times 1 is literally 1. So the answer is 1. And it looks like I circled B too. So just 1. So this one is not too bad, I think, but it's just kind of knowing where to start. Let's do number 10. So let me clear the screen, and remember that if you don't understand something that I'm doing, remember to just stop me, okay? So let's look at number 10. If a squared plus b squared is equal to 7, and a times b is a y, which of the following is equivalent to 4z plus 8y? So this is just another plugging in problem, in my opinion. So let's kind of think about it this way. So when you plug it in to this 4z plus 8y, you can plug in the z into the first term, which is a squared plus b squared plus 8 times the y, which is going to be ab. So then that just simplifies to 4 a squared plus 4 b squared times 8 ab. So now notice that none of these answers are in this form. This goes back to an algebraic principle with the a's and the b's. It may look familiar to you, but in case you don't remember that, because when I first saw this problem, I didn't even remember it. You can just kind of think about it logically. You know that your answer, whatever these are, your choices, it has to be equal to this. So let's kind of think about it. Whenever you write a polynomial squared, remember that it ends up looking like this. So I'll just do the first one. And remember that you have to do this. This one kind of came out weird, so let me just a plus 2b. So whenever you do that, remember that you go, I forgot what the saying is, but you go like this and that, and then you go like this and then that. So then really the first term that you get should be a squared, and that's going to be unique. So really you can kind of just do it in your head and see which one gives you 4a squared, because that's going to be your first term, and you can just do that by multiplying the first two. So for a, I see that like we just did, a times a is a squared, so it can't be that one because it has to be 4a squared. B, 2a times 2a is 4a squared. That's the answer, but let's just double check the rest. 4a times 4a squared, 4a times 4a is 16a squared, and so is it for D. So it can't be those, and B is the answer. So even if you don't remember, because this is something, it is like a formula in algebra where you can, if you have something like this, you can simply just write it in factored form just from knowing where each letter goes in the factored form. But you can just check your answer instead of spending the time like multiplying each one out. And this is just a tip, just in case we don't remember something, because really on the SAT, there's so many wild cards they can throw at you that you do have to be prepared for many questions that you may just not know. Like, it's very simple. You have to take a guess. And it's always good to just try something in a different approach just to make sure that you're getting the answer, because we are able to get this and we still want to get it right. But, you know, we just have to make sure that we're doing everything in our power to mathematically get the answer. So I'm going to move on to number 11 on the next page. I don't know if I'm going to do number 11. On this page, the one I want to do is number 11. Number 12 and 13 are not too bad, so I'll do number 11. So what number 11 says is the volume of right circular cylinder A is 22 cubic centimeters. And I see volume right away, so I'm automatically going to write the formula for that, that shape, which is pi r squared times h. It's a right circular cylinder, so it looks like that. If you're confused, you just have to do the base times the height. And the base is pi r squared, because that's the area, and then the height. All right, so let's see. What is the volume in cubic centimeters of a right circular cylinder with twice the radius and half the height of cylinder A? Um, so this, and the way I learned how to do this, I learned it in my physics class this year. So I'm gonna show you guys how I did it, and really how I think you should do it, because it's all in variables and there's no plugging in, so it's gonna be very, very obscure. But there is a way to do it. So we know that this is the formula for the right circular cylinder, and we know that it has to be equal to 22, because even though it doesn't give us the radius and the height, we know that the volume is 22. So it's that simple. So how do we find it when you're finding a different shape, but you have to use this one for like comparison? So and we're using it for comparison because it's telling us that it's half the radius of this shape, and it said half the radius. And no, it said twice the radius and half the height. That was my bad. Sorry, guys. So really, you can essentially say that maybe we can write this out first. It's going to be 2 times the radius and 1/2 of the height, right? Because it's twice the radius, half the height. So what I'm going to do is plug in these variables into this equation. So we have 2r over here squared, because it's the radius squared. You have to remember that. And then the height, which is going to be 1/2 h. So this ends up being, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, sorry about that. This is technically not right. It's not going to be 22 anymore because we're changing the measurements. So when you end up doing this, my tip for you guys is to move all the coefficients and the numbers in front, and then it'll be much clearer about what we should do next. So this ends up being 4r, and this ends up just being 1/2 h, 4r squared. And then when you do that, you end up getting 2 pi r squared h. So this is essentially just 2 times of pi r squared h. Well, we know that pi r squared h is 22. So 2 times that would be 44. And that's how you do it. So again, that's like the easiest way I saw for you for someone to do it. You just have to know that the volume is equal to pi r squared h, and the minute you see something with similar terms to what you do know, you can literally just plug it in. And since we know that already, it's just 2 times 22, which is equal to 44. So I hope that problem made sense. I know that that one was actually one of the more tricky ones, just because we don't know what to do when we have like those obscure letters, but hopefully it did make sense. So I'm gonna go on to the next page, just because I always like to do the written responses with you guys, just because those are the hardest to guess on. Let's see this page. I'm gonna do number 14, just because number 15, number 15 will take too long to explain, and I do want to get to the long responses. So let me just do 14. So it says the function f is defined by the equation above. Which of the following is the graph of y is equal to negative f of x? So it's going to be like the opposite. So whenever I see a graph like this and it gives me a whole bunch of options, the first thing I always like to do, this is a tip that I've learned, is just find the y-intercept. And to find the y-intercept, all you have to do is plug in 0 for x. So f of 0 is going to be 2 to the 0 is 1 plus 1, 2. That's going to be the intercept for this one. But it's telling us that's going to be the exact opposite. So the y-intercept for the new graph is going to be -2. So let's look and see which one has a y-intercept of -2. There's only one that has that, it's C. And that's why I like to find the y-intercept, because this one has it at 2, this one has it at -1, this one has it at -1 again. So none of those work. So it's really that simple if you just find something really easy and then use that thing that you just found to compare the graphs. But at least like the logic behind it, the graph 2 to the x plus 1 will kind of end up looking like this, I think. And then when you reflect it on the other axis, because that's what you're doing, it does end up flipping. So that's where it comes from, and that's why it looks like that. But yeah, let's move on to number 16. I think we're almost, yeah, we're at the long responses. So hopefully I get to do all of them today. Yeah, hopefully I get to do all of them. So let's see. And again, for this little tiny section, because we just finished the multiple choice, now we're on the long responses. The first long responses that you see, I keep saying long responses, I mean to say written responses. The first written responses you see will generally be more easy than the ones you find at the end. And of course, they put the geometry one at the end because they don't expect everyone to remember it. So let's start. So it says, Maria plans to rent a boat. The boat rental costs $60 per hour, and she will also have to pay for a water safety course that costs $10. Maria wants to spend no more than $280 for the rental and the course. If the boat rental is available for only a whole number of hours, what is the maximum number of hours for which Maria can rent the boat? So this is no calculator. So how to set it up? This seems like an inequality because it's saying no more than 280, not equal to 280, not less than 280, or actually less than 280 would also indicate an inequality, but it says no more than 280, which means that everything on this side has to be less than or equal to 280 because 280 is like her limit. And then it's saying that it costs $60 per hour, so 60x plus 10, a fee that she pays at the beginning. So now we're basically just solving for the maximum number of whole number of hours, and I think it did say whole number of hours for which Maria can rent the boat. So you just move the 10 over to the other side, you treat it like a normal equation, 270 60x, and you divide. Just like looking at this, you do know that and 260 does not go into 270 evenly because 27 is not a factor of 6. So the first thing I would do is just cancel out the zeros here, so it's easier just to picture it out. So x has to be less than or equal to 27 over 6, and now all you have to do is think about how many times 6 goes into 27. Well, that is 4, because 6 times 4 is 24. So since 6 goes into 27 4 times, that's the greatest amount of times that it does go in. That means that the greatest amount of whole number hours that she can pay is for 4. Now it's going to end up being like 4.3 or 4.4 something, but it's asking for whole numbers. So really the answer is just 4. So ignore those decimals, don't divide it, and the answer will simply be 4 hours. And all you have to do is just bubble in 4 into your answer sheet. Let's look at number 17 now. All right. What value of p is the solution to the equation above? So this is literally just solving for variables. So this is, again, not too bad. So all we have to do is distribute the 2, distribute the 8, and you have 5p. So I'm going to combine like terms, of course. I'm going to move the 5p over, and I'm going to move the 6 over. So you end up being 5p is equal to 6. When you divide by 5 on both sides, you get that p is equal to 6 over 5. That's your answer. That's all you have to put. Put 6/5 in your answer sheet. So let's look at number 18. All right, so the system of equations above has solution x comma y. What is the value of x? So there are many ways to do this, but I'm going to use substitution because I see something that can easily be substituted. So, and I'm going to substitute it into the bigger one, of course. Now, it tells us that y is equal to 2x. We have a 2x right over here. And since y is equal to that, I'm just going to plug in y over here. Or actually, since we're solving for x, let me do it a different way. We're solving for x, and I want to do a less amount of steps. And if we plug in y over here, we're solving for y, and then we'd have to do something else to get x. So I'm gonna go take I'm gonna step back for a second and plug in. I'm actually gonna plug in this one over here. Since we know that y is equal to 2x, I'm just gonna plug in 2x for y instead. So hopefully that makes sense. 21 over 2. So then now once you have this, it's just another solving game. So this ends up being 1/2 4x, 21 over 2. You split the 2x in half, so that ends up being 2x, 21 over 2. You divide by 2 on both sides. That ends up being 1/2. and then I'm just gonna write it over here. It ends up being 21 over 4, and that is the answer. That's the answer. That's all you have to do. So it's just kind of recognizing that you can plug in something easily here and get the answer. That's like the most important part. And then once you do it, it's just simple algebra. So hopefully that one also made sense. But again, these first three are designed for you to get them right, because sometimes the other problems will just be that much harder. If you're noticing that a lot of the problems are really easy, that's probably a good indicator that some of the problems later are going to be really hard. That's something that I had to learn the hard way. So let's look at number 19. So it says the expression above is equivalent to a over x plus 2 squared, where a is a positive constant and x is not equal to -2. What is the value of a? At first instinct, I may be inclined to set this equal to a over x plus 2 squared and then kind of solve for that, but I don't want to do that. That's too many steps. So I'm going to show you guys how I did it when I first saw this problem. And many of you guys will probably do the same thing. So all I know is that this over here has to be equal to this, and whatever you get on the top has to be equal to a, and that's your answer. So what I did is, and I noticed that they both, in order to get that, they have to have the same common denominator. So what I did, I noticed that in that, let me get rid of that so you can see the problem. I noticed that this needed an x plus 2 on the bottom in order for it to have the same denominator as the first term. When you end up doing that, just writing it out, you end up getting 2x plus 4 is equal to x plus 2 squared. So now I have to do subtract. 2x minus 2x, I'm subtracting the numerators because you don't do anything with the denominators. 2x minus 2x ends up being 0. 6 minus 4 ends up being 2. Now notice that this is the exact same form how it wants it, so a has to be equal to 2 because a is the numerator, and that's how to do it. So that's the answer to this problem. Again, it's that one was a different way of doing it, and of course you can do it that long way, but I didn't want to do it the long way. I'm sure that many of you guys don't want to waste time on this section. The goal, of course, for any section that you get in math is to finish ahead of time so that you can check your work, because checking your work is vital, especially when you're doing these written responses, because it's so easy to make a mistake. So that's why I'm trying to teach you guys like the quickest way to do it instead of like the most like logical. So 20 is the last problem for this section. So I'm going to be finishing early today, unexpectedly. I guess I've been going a little fast today, so for next time, if I'm going too fast, please let me know. I don't want to be going too fast, but hopefully these problems have not been too bad. And then Natalie will start at 12:40, I guess. So intersecting lines R, S, T are shown below. What is the value of X? So this is testing your knowledge of angles, lines, and triangles. So let's see. We have to find X, but we're going to be using that triangle that's formed over there to help us in the lines. So the first thing that I notice is that I want to complete the triangle first in order to find X. And I noticed that there's this line over here and a little segment, and it's telling me that this is 106. And if you remember, this is going to end up being a supplementary angle, because since it lies on a line, this whole angle will be 180. So you just have to find what plus 106 will give you 180, and that's 74. So the missing angle right over here is 74 degrees. Sorry about that. I'm going to draw a picture here just so it's easier to see it. This is 74. This is 23. We don't know this one, but we know that there's a line over here. So now we have to use the principle that all the angles in a triangle add up to 180 to find the others. So you can simply do this by subtracting the two that you already have, 74 and 23. That ends up being 97. So instead of me doing two terms, I'm just adding them up now. So 180 minus 97 is simply 83. And that means that this little missing angle over here has to be 83. But now there's another angle that we're missing
Wait,
for.
I have a question. From where
Yeah,
did you get the 97?
Oh, the 97? Okay, so what I did, and I'll just like break it down. So, oops, sorry about that. So you're just subtracting 74 and 23. Oops, 23. And since I didn't want to subtract both at the same time, I just combined these two, and they end up combining to 97. So that's where I got the 97 from. It can just simply be rewritten as this.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So now that we have 83, all we have to do is figure out a missing angle for x, and just like we did for the one at the beginning, the angle at the beginning, it is another supplementary angle. So you just have to find the number that adds up there. So really it's just 180 minus 83, which is 97. So the answer is 97 degrees.